Hey, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm Marco Rosa. I'm here to give a presentation on some job strategies as you move forward as you're going through school. Today, this will be our agenda. And you're welcome to interrupt the presentation at any time, so it's not a problem. So I'll be fine with that, okay? Because sometimes we have a tendency to not understand something. And so I would rather people interrupt versus to continue and then wait till later to ask a question. Okay, so that's so I'm going to create a mindset for you, and then we're going to go do some research and some focus. And I want to talk to you about the work domains that people interview for, and also some key strategies as you're looking for work or as you're looking for internships. And we'll talk about some networking, and then we also have to talk about something that you all never think about, and that's what your plan B is. Okay, so there has to be a plan A, which we'll talk about in terms of strategies, but we also have to develop a different strategy, which is also a plan B. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of let you know that. So this is who I am. And I've been a Chief Human Resources Officer for a very, very long time. So I won't tell you how many years because you'll be embarrassed. As well as I started my career in human resources at the General Electric company back east. And prior to joining GE, I was in the U.S. Air Force as a captain, and I was a search and rescue officer jumping out of helicopters in Iceland and in England, saving people in the ocean. So that's what I did for a living. I graduated school in Vermont at St. Michael's College, and then I went to grad school at NYU in counseling psychology. When I was in Vermont after school, that's where I got my commission, and then I took a delay to hide out from the Vietnam War, and then joined the Air Force after as a search and rescue officer. Most of my career after GE, which was for 10 years, went into life sciences. So I'm expert in life sciences, developing drugs, developing med devices, taking them to market, and then in most cases launching them and then getting acquired by big pharma. Today I'm a faculty member at a few universities, and I've been teaching for the certificate program both at Berkeley and here for many, many years. And so now I just try to just teach here in the certificate program. So, and I'm also an executive coach for another firm, and I also do search for human resources jobs when asked. So I don't advertise myself. People know who I am in life sciences. I'm kind of like the 911 HR guy. And after this, I'll be teaching a class, comprehensive employee benefits, in the room down the hallway. So that's who I am. And any questions about that, you can interrupt me as well. But what I want to talk about is, so there were two different struggles with us. One was during the pandemic, and now we're faced with how we look for work after the pandemic. So I'm going to be focusing more on that because we need to, again, reset ourselves as we look for work. And the environment is not as conducive as it was back during the pandemic and pre-pandemic. We've lost over the last 14 months, 20,000 jobs, both in technology and in life sciences and hospitality. The only good news that happened this past month, if you look at the data from last Friday, is in the Bay Area, we added 10,000 jobs, primarily more in technology and in hospitality and in retail. But those jobs got added. in a variety of different counties. So no one was expecting 10,000 jobs to be added this past month. So that's kind of the good news for you. And then I want to talk to you about a little bit about the generations at work, because that will have an impact on how you go look for work in terms of the different companies that are hiring, as well as thinking about your plan B. But here's the book you should buy. Okay, this book will take you probably 2 to, if not 3 hours to read at best. And it will change your whole perspective of who you are and about yourself in a variety of different settings, relative to your parents, relative to your peers, relative to how you study, how you get through school. And it's really, really a cool book. Carol's is a big colleague of mine from Stanford. I've known her for years, but she probably wrote the best book, which I'm sorry, I didn't. And this is a great read. So I want you to really think about, as you look for work, changing your mindset. Because if you think about people doing sports, this is what's going on. And tomorrow, or Thursday, what happens on Thursday? Does anybody know what happens on Thursday relative to sports? It's the NBA draft. And there's this guy in France who's 7'4", who's going to be the first pick of the San Antonio Spurs. And so not even an American is going to be first in the NBA draft, but you get to go look. And the top 10, there are 6 freshmen. They're finished freshmen, and they're one and done, and they're going to go play for the NBA. So, and it's because of their mindset. It really, really is because of their mindset in terms of not their athletic ability. It's not about their athletic ability. It's also about their mindset. So I just want you to embrace this book as you move forward, because you're going to have that same type of mindset with your family, with school, and looking for work. And what's interesting is the best thing that happens to you where you learn is through failure, through your setbacks. You really get to learn a lot about that. And so as we shift from this book, because you're all going to buy it, it's going to probably cost you $10 or less. It'll be the best investment that you make in yourself. We'll talk about our valley. We'll talk about looking for work. And it doesn't matter where you look for work, but it's about looking for work. And this is where preparation meets opportunity. So what's interesting is most people struggle with this topic because they're at a loss of what to do. And as I look for work, especially after the pandemic, post COVID-19, I get confused. There are jobs, and I keep applying, and I keep applying, and I hear nothing. So here's a listing of some of those places you have to go look for work. Okay, but what we're gonna also talk about as we look for work, there is a pretty big article about caps and gowns, and you can Google the article on caps and gowns, and what it talks about is everybody's graduating from school, everybody's getting different certificates, but nobody knows anybody to connect with to go look for work. And that is the kind of the #1 failure that's going on in America today as people graduate. Because you can post all you want, I will guarantee you, you will hear nothing. You will have to find different people.
So it's all about the personal connection.
Yes, can you raise your voice, because I think we're being recorded, and how many people do we have online?
Yeah, 15.
15 online. So what was your question?
Just ask, so it's much more important to form those personal connections than to just kind of like wide net apply to many places, like quality over quantity.
There's two people in the back of the room that bother me continually. One is right here. He's not even in my certificate program. He's doing research in life sciences, and he continually bothers me. Who do I know? What do I know? What about this job? What about that job? Do I answer you?
Every time.
Every time. Sometimes it's not the greatest answer, but he gets an answer.
But how do you find him?
By coming to these workshops.
So you can bother me, any of you can bother me anytime. Okay, I'm used to it. I teach 3 different required courses for the certificate, and all my students get a get out of jail card free from the game of Monopoly. Okay, so that means that they can bother me anytime they want, when they either have an interview, have a resume that needs to be looked at, or needs a reference. So that's what happens with my students. But here are some pieces to consider, and I'm sure that you're gonna share the slides anyway, so you don't have to take notes. Because I don't care where this ends up.
If you're comfortable sharing, we're happy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I don't care what you share. It's fine. But what you really have to do is think about, okay, if I'm being frustrated and I'm not getting anywhere, it's okay to look at a plan B. Because in this plan B, everybody's hiring, either in hospitality or retail. And at least you can go find work. You can also go find an internship in these places as well. Most people don't realize that. They'll take the OPT. Okay, now it would be helpful if they get referred. Or you would walk into Costco and say, is your manager here? And then ask, so if I apply, will you accept an OPT for an internship working at Costco? And that's how you find out sometimes. You walk into Target and you go see, or you walk into Trader Joe's, or you walk into Whole Foods. Sometimes the manager's hanging out, and they'll be happy to talk to you. You still have to go online and apply. They won't do anything for you. They won't take your thing, but they'll answer your questions. So the other big piece that goes on relative to these companies is there is a lot of different styles and work ethic that goes on relative to the generations at work. And these are the generations that are going on at work. And the majority of you all are over here. Okay. But if you want to hear more about this, if you show up tomorrow night, I'll give you an invitation, and you will meet VPs of HR that are having their Bay Area Human Resources Executive Council meeting just next door. And there is an author and presenter that's going to talk solely about you, generations and Gen Zs. And he's going to talk about all kinds of things relative to what you are all about, and how you look for work, and how you interact with everybody. And he's a well-known author. And millennials think they're going to save the world. Okay, they really, really do. But it's you guys that are actually going to do better. You will do much better, because this is what you guys are all about. And most importantly, you want to be at work. You want to be on site. Millennials could care less about being at work. They all want to be remote. But this is where you all show up on site, and what you guys do is you go look for mentors. You go look for people that you want to work with as a team, and then you also look for mentors. And so that's why people are leaning more towards your generation as you look for work. Because there's some value in that. And I don't know whether you know that or not, but I thought I'd share that with you. But this is the most important piece that we're going to move into is, you know, how do I get interviewed? What are they actually looking for? How do I answer different questions? And it's a little bit challenging and confusing a little bit because these are the domains of inquiries. See, it's not one circle. It's 3 different circles. Because they talk about your technical skills, they talk about your interactive skills as a team member, and they also talk about your work habits. And all the questions that they're going to ask you are going to be surrounded in these 3 areas of domains of inquiry. And what you all should do is take one of your fellow students, go to Zoom and practice. Okay? Make up questions relative to this and ask your fellow student. Go ahead and answer. I'm going to interview you on Zoom. And no one ever does that. There was an old American expression back then is practice makes perfect. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but that's an old American expression. You still have to give it some credence because if you don't practice on Zoom about how to be interviewed and interview with a friend of yours, you're going to not do well. Because it is very, very different than interviewing in person versus interviewing on the screen. So the job matrix is also the other piece where they're going to ask you some questions as well. So it's, can you do this job? Will you be able to do the job? And then how do you really fit in our culture, in our organization? And before, a lot of people weren't paying attention to this. Pre-pandemic, a lot of people weren't paying attention to that. Today they are, because there's a lot more of the hybrid remote type situation that goes on at work. Before there was hardly any. So now they have to really make sure they get the right fit in the organization. Otherwise, they're going to all fail. We talked about what I shared with you is the Zoom platform. This is where you have to become proficient. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. You really have to be proficient. And the only way you do that is you got to prepare and practice like I shared. And you also have to be asked difficult questions. So if I ask you a question, then it's part of the 3 questions that I'm going to share with you is, can you, and I want you to answer, can you share with me how we're going to be able to tolerate you working with us?
Yeah, I believe that I'm a very positive individual that really likes to work with teams in general, either in the work environment or our field. I think that, okay, now I don't know how to continue with
Okay. Hard question, isn't it?
Yeah,
You wouldn't expect that question, would you? So here's one of the questions. So can you do this job? Okay. So you have a set of technical skills, but you also have these AI skills that you bring to the party as well with your technical skills. So I'm asking you if you're going to love this job. So people are going to ask you this question as well, because they really want to know how you embrace work. And will it be a priority for you as you're moving forward? Okay. And then the last question was, can we tolerate working? So it's all about the culture fit today. Before they weren't asking this question. Now, have you had any interviews relative to your internship yet?
No, it was only email because of my visa
Because of
situation.
your visa situation. Okay, I'm just asking. Anybody else have an interview yet? No? You don't want to practice with me. I'm a very difficult interviewer. And you'll never even know it.
That would be the best.
Okay,
That would be the best.
so here I am. I'm going to give you a cheat sheet. Okay? And there's a lot of data on this cheat sheet. Okay? But if we're lucky enough through somebody to get an interview, even with a recruiter, these are the left-hand side. These are the things that you really need to do research on. You need to know everything there is to know. You get your hands on the company that's going to interview you. So you get a sense of what type of company it is. And you got to go find people that work there through somebody else. Because you cannot have an interview with you not knowing somebody that knows Joe Bag of Donuts that works in that company. So they can ask Joe Bag of Donuts, so what is it like to work there? That's one of the pieces in your research that you have to figure out how to do. I know that sounds like a big step, but you have to get out of your comfort zone and figure that out. Because that's how you're going to shine when you have the opportunity to ask questions.
But I got confused. So I need to, if I get the opportunity to get an interview with that company, to talk to someone within the company and ask them like before.
So you need to find somebody that knows somebody that works in that company.
Oh, okay.
And that's somebody who you know can find the Joe Bag of Donuts in that company. And he'll get you or she'll get you some answers of what it's like to work there. And that's what you got to go find. So you really have to be somewhat more creative in getting data about the company. Yeah, you can do all the research you want online. You can read all the bios of all the executives that are there. You can go to LinkedIn and you can click on the company and see all those people. But until you find somebody that knows one of those people to ask, so what is it like to work here? You haven't done anything.
Would it be risky to go directly, not to maybe how do you say the Joe Bag of Donuts, but maybe just someone in the company, not maybe.
Well, I don't know if they'll connect with you.
Oh, okay.
They say, and you know that I know a lot of people in life sciences, and you want to go work in life sciences. It's very, very easy to me to find Joe Bag of Donuts in a specific company. Now, if you were interviewing in a tech company, I would probably not be the best person. But if you're looking in a life science company, I probably know 80% of the people in life science. That's probably because I'm an old man. I've worked and I've brought 2 drugs to market, and companies have sold for billions of dollars to big pharma. So the other research that you need to understand and do is understand and do the research on the salary. You're going to see the job posting and you're going to see a range, but that range is going to be meaningless. What you need to do is you need to do your own research to find out what is the range and what is the market midpoint of that position. I teach this in my courses. Because it's really, really important to know that data. And it's really easy to find that data. So you can go to Bamboo HR, you can go to salary.com. So there's plenty of places that you can go. Or you go find somebody that works in human resources that has access to the Radford survey, and they'll tell you exactly what the ranges are and what the market midpoint is. I know this is a lot of work for you all, but this is what you have to do, especially today. It's unfortunate. It was easier 3 years ago, but it's paramount to do that today. And as you see from the last word on the left-hand side, you got to practice. Okay, don't be bashful.
What makes a Zoom interview so much harder than an in-person interview? Oh, sorry. What makes a Zoom interview so much more difficult?
So the Zoom interview that makes it difficult is, I guess I'm not on the screen anymore. You stop following me. Is I can relate to you one-on-one in person, but it's much more challenging to relate to you on the screen. Okay, and that's why you have to practice, because you're going to ask him when you practice, how did I come across? You know, was I nervous? Was I comfortable? Could you hear me? Because you also have to ask him, and he's the interviewer. You also have to figure out what 5 questions you're going to ask him. Because he's going to ask you, do you have any questions for me? So here are the answers that you need to know about yourself on the right-hand side. See, there was a lot of work you had to do on the left-hand side. You've only just begun, because you really need to know the answers to these questions. Now, if you're only looking for an internship, then it'll be a little bit easier to not have an answer to all these companies. I mean, all these questions. But I'm going to ask you on Zoom, so what do you know about my company? So you're going to need to have an answer for that.
If I've done the research, then I should.
So if he goes, well, you know, I was fortunate enough to know a name who got in touch with one of your employees, and this is what he shared about working for your company. And how impressive would that be to a recruiter to know that you went the extra mile to look for somebody in that company and find out what it's like to work there? Would you think that answer would stand out relative to the recruiter, since he's going to interview at least 5 people on Zoom, because they don't have this cheat sheet, right? So I just wanted you to make sure that you have something like this, and it's okay to get these slides, so it's not a problem. This is what happens if you're being Zoomed for an interview, okay? So you won't be able to stand up in a Zoom meeting. But if you're a person, okay? But these are all the things that need to have happen. You always have to ask the other question at the end. So what happens next? What is the process in terms of continuing to be interviewed? It's not about getting the job. It's about continuing the process. So don't get so stressed about whether you're going to get hired or not. Be mindful and purposeful that you want to continue the process. Okay? I always tell all my students and people that I counsel, always continue the process to the very end and see if you can get an offer. And if you get an offer, it's like the airlines. You can either show up or not.
An online question. I've heard some people actually stand during a Zoom call. Is this an effective way to go about the remote interview?
So some people can stand if they have those stand-up things, and that's fine. If they feel more comfortable standing to be interviewed, that's okay versus sitting. It's not a big deal. Okay? It's more about being prepared. And it's more about answering the questions. And it's more about you asking the right questions as well. That helps. So I want you all to figure out how to challenge yourself. And the only way to do that is to meet other people. Meet other people, find out who they are, find out what leadership roles they have, and who they might know as you're looking for work. Because they need to know that you're looking for. Make sense? Because you're looking for inspiration. And you're looking for that leader that can provide that inspiration to you. Okay? And you keep looking until you find it. Okay? It's like going for a walk in the woods. You finally find the tree that you might like. There are a lot of trees. So it's all about networking. And there was this big article 2 weeks ago challenging the schools because they're not teaching students who are graduating how to network. And there was a big, big article about that. Because if you don't know anybody, you're not going to get hired. Period. So keep posting as much as you'd like, but if you don't know anybody, it's not going to work. There was one school identified that did this correctly. One school in the article. That was Tufts University. I was shocked when I read the article that they only identified one school. Now, I've worked in student centers before at a university, and I can tell you that it's pretty challenging. They're not that good at it. I was an executive in residence at a state university for an entire summer, and I taught the counselors how to teach people how to look for work, how to teach students who are graduating, who are getting internships, how to look for work, because they don't know how. It's really, it's really disappointing as a professional to know that doesn't do well in the schools. They don't teach it out. Okay, so we're going to go back to this a minute because I don't want you to forget this, because you're going to be very, very frustrated as you look for work. So you need to develop a plan B as well, because you can always move from plan B to plan A, but you got to have a plan B. Okay. And sometimes you'd be surprised within the plan B, people get discovered at these companies as well. They're just as good. Okay. It's all about being discovered. So you can't just look for the job that you really want. Sometimes you have to pick the organization that you want to work for, get a secondary role, and then get discovered. And that is really the problem-solving crux of looking for work and getting discovered. Because once you get discovered, someone's going to guide you to your next job. So this is going to be your job search homework. When you leave here, this is your homework, okay? And you really need to carve out time for yourselves as you do this. Buy the book, identify some organizations, understand the different questions that are going to be asked for you in the domains of inquiries relative to interviewing, and then carve out your network, complete your cheat sheet, and then practice your interviews on Zoom. It's really, really important. Just as important as to develop a plan B. So there you are. We're done. In record time. So, and those that are interested in the big meeting tomorrow with the Bay Area Human Resources Executive Council, stay at the end and I'll give you the information on invite. The people that are online, what I can share with you, if you write down Bay Area Human Resources Executive Council. And the acronym is BAHREC, BAHREC. You can go online and you will see the website and you can actually directly apply to the website. And as a student, you will get in free. And what's interesting tomorrow night, it's also a hybrid meeting. There'll probably be about 30 to 35 people here in person. Since I'm the one that's getting the food, so I know. But it's also hybrid, so you can actually be virtual and listen to this guy. But it's really important to be here in person because that's where you'll meet the people. You won't meet the people virtually. You'll meet yourselves virtually, but you won't meet, some of these pretty cool folks and colleagues of mine. So if that's helpful, that's nice. So I teach tonight, and then I teach next Thursday night. So that's my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions.
So what area of the executive would be for tomorrow meetings? Is it your area that is life science?
Oh, no, most of them are all technology people. They're mostly all technology. There'll probably be 3 or 4 life science people, but mostly all technology. And maybe a couple in education. There'll probably be someone from Stanford and also maybe in hospitality as well or retail, but mostly all technology. There'll probably be 3 or 4 in, I got to get back in the camera. 3 or 4 in just life sciences. So I'm a minority, so that's fine. Any other questions?
Are there anyone from semiconductor industry?
I would suspect that there will be. Okay. Or I'll introduce you to somebody that will know somebody in semiconductor.
Thank you.
So, not a problem. I'm on the board, so I know the majority of the membership. So. Any other questions?
In terms of networking, what's the best method to go about that? Because it's sometimes difficult to meet specific people unless there's an organized event around.
Well, organized events are good. The thing is, if you see a job in company X, then you got to ask everybody that you know that might know somebody that works in that company. Okay, he does that all the time with me. I'm not the only one he knows, but he bothers me more than most.
Because you know most of the people that.
Yeah. But that I know it sounds difficult, but that's what you got to really do. Because if you don't, you're going to be one of 50 to 100 applicants. And see, all we're trying to do is that person will move you to the top of the line so you get looked at. And the key is to get looked at. Make sense?
I guess my next question is what about initially meeting people who can introduce you? Because let's say for life science, right? There's a specific company I wanted to get into. How would
let's pick on Gilead. Okay, so I know 10 people at Gilead. So we go after those 10 people, depending on what job you're applying for. they'll move you to the front of the line. Only because they know me.
So you would be the first connection in that.
I would be the first connection.
Okay.
Yeah, as an example. So you would come and I would introduce you to somebody and you would say, do you know somebody that works at Marvell, the semiconductor company down the street? And the answer will probably be probably, maybe, yes. Well, semiconductor, I know everybody that works at Maxim that was acquired by Analog Devices last year. So, see, I know somebody in semiconductor, and I'm a life science guy. The only reason why I know the people at Maxim is because they were my former students. There's always an angle somewhere that you have to go figure out. Make sense? Okay. Any other questions?
What's another way to find these kind of events, like the one that is going to happen tomorrow, to network on site with more people?
Yeah, the more people you know, the better off you are.
But what are some options to find more of these events?
Oh, more of these events.
Because, for example, LinkedIn, I usually find both webinars that are online.
So, in life sciences, in biospace.com, they'll tell you where all the meetings are. And that's where you go. It's going to cost you money, unfortunately, because they don't do what my organization does, which is if you're a student, you're free. But they would be very impressed if you saved your money and you went to that thing and they met you and they'd say, you're a student and you came to this meeting? Yeah, I came to meet some leaders.
Sasha asked, any advice for an aspiring biochemist trying to get a job in the field?
Biospace.com is the first place you would go look at. He knows that. And then send me another email. There's also a newsletter that comes out in biotech. And they advertise all the meetings in the area.
Would it be insincere because it seems like you're only networking trying to look for a job?
That's not insincere. That's the only way to look for jobs, and people like me know that. So if he comes and bothers me, I'm gonna get somebody that he knows that he can meet, because we expect you guys to hit us up for referrals. So we're never gonna say no to you. We'd feel guilty if we said no, so why wouldn't I help you? You know, I'm not Catholic, but at the same time, you know, I feel guilty. That makes sense. So you're not bothering anybody, okay? They would expect you, if you went to a meeting, any kind of meeting, and you say, I'm here to meet some people because I'm actually here looking for an internship. Or I'm graduating and I got my degree and I'm looking for a research position, an entry-level research position. Now, the only thing that I didn't state, which I think I omitted, is there are a lot of temporary agencies that support technology and support life sciences, and you can find those. And that's another way of looking for work, is to go become a temp. And some temp agencies actually present candidates for internships, okay? So that's also another angle.
Sorry, where would you find these temp agencies? I've looked online and it seems as though the temp agencies that I find are mostly freelance sites. I don't know. I'm just confused on how to find those.
Oh, no. So for example, back east, Fortune Personnel does all life sciences. I would ask my friends there who they know over here. I mean, there are a lot of different firms that do temp agency jobs, I just have to go, I would have to just go ask, and I'll find out. All you have to do is send me an email. I don't know if it's on there. There it is. And I'll go get a listing of the temp agencies in life sciences. I can't do it for technology because I don't know who they are anymore. But Nelson Personnel is a really, really good temp agency. Apple One is another good agency. So those are two that come to mind, but there's several that you can go look and see what's being advertised, what's being posted. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? Bring it on.
So, I was wondering if students or people who already have like an industry experience and they want to join like SHRM or something like that. How do you suggest someone, for example, who can like afford? Because I know the membership is increasing. Membership prices are increasing.
So are you asking about joining SHRM?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the best organization to join in human resources.
Mhm.
I was at the conference in Las Vegas because I was helping college students do mock interviews. We all listened to Janet Jackson one night. She performed for us. So and SHRM has a NorCal organization here, and they put on conferences and meetings, and you can go to those meetings here. So it's not a bad investment to invest in SHRM, if in fact you're going to do human resources and to get certified by SHRM. Don't do the HRCI one, do the SHRM one. Okay, and all these people that'll be here tomorrow night, we're a SHRM organization, so you can show up.
Another online question, how would you make the LinkedIn or UCSC handshake stand out to recruiters?
That's difficult. You have to go register and everything else, but there's so many people there that it'll be difficult for you to stand out. Okay. Again, I would venture to guess you have to probably go find a meeting and just go to the meeting. You have to spend money to meet people. It's your future. So it's hard to stand out with these big websites that have lots of people within them. And that's why we have to go find people to help us find other people as we're looking for work. Okay? Any other questions? I hope this was helpful, and they'll send out, if you're registered and everything else, they'll send out these slides to you. And then you'll see my email over there and my LinkedIn profile. Okay? So I'm happy to help. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.